Thank you for inviting me to speak here today. As mentioned, I work in the Secretary's Office of Policy Planning at the State Department. We're charged with examining over-the-horizon issues for the Secretary of State and the State Department more broadly, identifying emerging opportunities and developing strategies to achieve longer-term objectives. So we've just heard a comprehensive and fascinating overview from Deputy Assistant Secretary Sumar about global events that affect the prospects for regional integration in Central Asia. My remarks will go into a bit more detail about the regional context and why we believe this is a real moment of opportunity for the governments of Central Asia and South Asia to focus on the economic benefits to be gained from connectivity with their neighbors. The choice and responsibility is, of course, with the governments of the region, but the moment seems to be both favorable for success and important for the future trajectories of the countries in Central Asia. We've talked about the New Silk Road. I just want to underscore that the New Silk Road concept is an inclusive idea that is not aimed at excluding any country or group of countries, but rather boosting economic growth across the region through increasing trade and transit, streamlining customs and borders, creating regional energy markets, and developing people-to-people ties. And notably, other countries in the region, including Kazakhstan, but also India and China, have advanced their own concepts to advance regional economic connectivity. So you'll recall that when the New Silk Road concept was rolled out very prominently in a speech by former Secretary Clinton in Chennai, India in 2011, it was a framework that was designed to support peace and reconciliation in Afghanistan. As we've discussed, the political transition in Afghanistan is historic and sets Afghanistan on a new path. We're realistic about the challenges facing the Government of National Unity, but it is an important moment for the entire region to look to the future. We are encouraging President Ghani and CEO Abdullah to reach out to neighbors and improve ties, and President Ghani himself has spoken about a renewed focus on relations with Afghanistan's neighbors. Ultimately, the countries in the region have the most to gain from helping Afghanistan following this very important historic political transition. I'll also say a few words about Russia. The U.S. remains deeply concerned about the situation between Russia and Ukraine, and we are committed to supporting a diplomatic process between them that respects Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Going back to the 1990s, everyone in this room will recall the longstanding U.S. position for all the countries in Central Asia, which has been to support their sovereignty and territorial integrity and their ability to make their own economic choices. This does not preclude countries in the region from maintaining their ties with Russia. As we've seen in the past, the crisis between Russia and Ukraine has prompted some of Russia's economic partners in Europe to evaluate their economic ties to Moscow. In Eastern Europe and Central Europe, countries are considering new methods to diversify their economies away from energy dependence on Russia. So what does this mean for regional integration and connectivity? Obviously, Kazakhstan and other countries in Central Asia will retain deep economic and cultural ties to Russia based on shared history. But new demand from China and other countries has opened windows for economic diversification, including of transit routes and exports. The rationale for energy independence and the freedom to make economic choices based on market incentives and sovereign interest is compelling. Turning next to China, China's economic growth and its commensurate demand for energy is a game changer. We welcome efforts by China to develop energy and transportation infrastructure in the region because it can bring economic benefits to the countries of Central Asia and to Afghanistan. We're realistic. The United States is an important partner for all the countries in Central Asia, and our companies are major players there, particularly in the energy sector. But China, as a neighbor to the countries of Central Asia and as a result of its own dramatic economic growth, is naturally going to be a leader in trade and investment. We want to work with China, and we do work with China, to support peace, stability, and prosperity in Central Asia, even as we support the ability of the governments in Central Asia to make their own economic choices based on market principles and national interest. Finally, a word on India. Under the new government of Prime Minister Modi, India is ramping up its engagements with its immediate neighbors, as well as with countries in East and Southeast Asia. As India seeks to advance its own economic growth, it is looking for new sources of energy. This makes India an ideal market for Central Asian energy exports. Obviously, there are persistent security challenges to consider in any export route from Central Asia to India, but there is a growing recognition of the possibilities that could emerge over time. The new government in India represents a significant opportunity for regional connectivity because of its rising energy demand and a growing consumer base. I'll just close by saying it's an exciting time for the region with significant incentives and opportunities for the countries in Central Asia to benefit from closer economic ties, both with each other and with their neighbors.
Thank you.